Good morning. It is Thursday, the 15th of January. I'm Maeve McMahon, and this is Europe Today, your daily dose of European news and analysis, live here on Euronews. Coming up today, we agree to disagree. A high-level meeting between the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland ended without resolution in Washington yesterday. Donald Trump is still insisting Greenland is crucial for national security. Meanwhile, several NATO allies have announced troop deployments to Greenland for surveillance and training. For more on this, we can actually cross now over to NATO headquarters outside Brussels, where our correspondent Shona Murray is standing by for us. So good morning, Shona. Things didn't go just as well as hoped in Washington. Tell us what exactly happened.
Well, Maeve, if the object of the conversation was to persuade the United States that it shouldn't or doesn't need to take over Greenland, then unfortunately it wasn't a success. As we heard from the two foreign affairs ministers, there was fundamental disagreements and they remain. Now, I think from a Greenlandish and Danish perspective, what they did do was they said they were able to challenge the narrative of the United States, which is that they need to take over Greenland because there's Chinese warships everywhere. They said that is not true. There hasn't been a Chinese warship there for over a decade. They also made the point that the United States already has extensive access to Greenland and at one point had 17 military bases there. It only has one now, but that's through its own volition. And finally, they said, look, we do agree that there will be security issues in the future given the opening up of sea lanes. But that security issue, that architecture should be done within NATO and not unilaterally by the United States. Just take a listen to that press conference from the two foreign affairs ministers yesterday.
The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position.
Denmark's Foreign Minister there, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, speaking. So, Shona, just tell us, where does this leave the matter of Greenland now?
Well, that's obviously a very interesting question. What we heard yesterday and what you mentioned at the start is that some NATO countries have deployed armed forces to Greenland, countries like Norway, Denmark, Sweden and France. That's obviously in response to this instability which is evolving. There is also an agreement to have a forum to try to resolve this issue. But we don't exactly know what the United States will do because it says it's intent on taking over Greenland or acquiring it. Will that be through military force? It doesn't look like that might be the case. Is it going to be through coercion? So the issue really remains an open one and a very, very dangerous and threatening one. And yesterday, Euronews caught up with John Bolton, who's Donald Trump's former national security advisor, a man who was a key proponent in the invasion of Iraq, it must be said. And he said this is a very bad idea. And he also made the point that only 8% of Americans actually think the United States should do this and try to take over Greenland.
Well, I think it's a disaster for the United States, as I say, that we're even talking about this. Just the talk, though, of using military force is costing the U.S. in terms you can't even calculate, in terms of trust and good faith and our reputation. And we can say there's a new poll out today that shows exactly 8% of the American people favor the use of force to take Greenland. I'd like to ask that 8% if they even know where Greenland is.
John Bolton there, the former US security advisor, and you can catch the rest of that interview on Euronews' 12 minutes before, of course, we had our Shona Murray reporting live for us from NATO. Well, another topic that NATO allies are monitoring very closely is President Donald Trump's next moves in Iran. This time yesterday, a US-led military strike was looking increasingly likely, with several European countries, from Poland to Italy, urging their citizens to leave immediately. But now it seems that Donald Trump has dialed down the tone. For more on this, we're joined on set here by Euronews' EU editor, Maria Tadeo. So President Trump seems a little bit more measured now. Fill us in.
Well, he certainly is, because remember, Maeve, at the start of the week, the president himself put out a post on social media saying, hold on tight in the protests in the country, which have been really a massacre, a specific number, very difficult to place. They go all the way from 2,000 people killed on the streets of Iran to 10,000. Very difficult to establish communications with the country because of this blackout we've seen for the past few days. But remember, the U.S. president himself said, help help is on its way. Yesterday night, however, he changed his tone, now suggesting that he has it from good authority, from good sources, that the killings have stopped. He did not elaborate, of course, and that is still a pending question mark. But let's take a look and listen to President Trump yesterday night.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out. But we've been told on good authority, and I hope it's true. Who knows, right? Who knows?
We've
Crazy
seen body
world.
bags. So how do you trust?
No, you've seen that over the last few days, and they said people were shooting at them with guns, and they were shooting back, and it's one of those things. But they told me that there'll be no executions.
And that's President Trump. They told me there will be no executions. Of course, there was a lot of concern that there could be public executions. We've seen the face of this 26-year-old man from Iran who, again, there was this idea that there could be severe punishment all the way to death in public. I should also note the Iran's foreign minister was also on U.S. television saying the idea that we are going to be publicly hanging people, that is not going to happen, is out of the question. So obviously the language has been toned down on the two sides. I should note, however, when you look at the region, and that goes for the Gulf countries, but also Israel, this is a Middle East that is still very much on edge. And we should look at the operational details on the map. The U.S. did pull back some of their non-essential personnel and some of the key military bases in the region. You only do that if you believe Iran is going to retaliate in some form, and Iran would only retaliate if they get hit by the U.S. first. So, Maeve, this is part of this doctrine of the maximum optionality from the White House. It means that the fact that a strike is not imminent does not mean it's not going to happen in the future. It's chaotic at times, but it's also effective because it keeps everyone on their toes, certainly.
It does indeed, and it keeps you on your toes, Marie. Today, Euronews EU editor, thank you so much for all those insights. And as you heard there, thousands of anti-government protesters are feared dead or imprisoned since the start of that brutal crackdown last month, and an internet blackdown is still in place. Our Jakob Yanis has been taking a look at the killing machine behind the crackdown.
This theocracy should no longer be in power. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola was clear on Euronews that the Iranian regime is on its last legs. But standing between the protesters and the regime, there is one ruthless entity: the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Who are they? They are not just an army. They are an elite killing machine founded in 1979 to protect the ideology of the revolution. And they answer only to the supreme leader. It is an estimated force of 100,000 elite troops, backed by a 600,000 strong Basij paramilitary network. In return for their loyalty, the state grants them a massive gold chest, $6 to $9 billion, a budget estimated to be nearly double that of the regular army. But they are also a business conglomerate, an empire within an empire, controlling sectors from energy to telecoms. And with thousands of protesters presumed dead, these billions buy the loyalty that pulls the trigger. So why hasn't the EU designated them as a terrorist organization yet? The European Parliament has called for it for years, but EU law requires a national court ruling first and a consensus next. A recent court case in Germany finally provided the legal cover. European leaders are now calling for more sanctions to hurt the regime economically. But will these actions be enough to stop the massacre on the streets of Tehran?
Jakob Yanis reporting there. And for more on the situation in Iran coming up, we'll be joined by David McAllister, German veteran MEP and chair of the European Parliament Foreign Affairs Committee, a member, of course, of the CDU, the European People's Party here in Brussels. Good morning, David McAllister.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah, lovely to have you here on Europe Today. And look, the scale of the carnage is just starting to emerge really from Iran. What is the EU and the Parliament doing to support people on the ground?
Well, we're all observing the situation in Iran now for many weeks with great concern, and these massacres in Iran are just horrific. What we as European Union can do is to show all our solidarity with the brave people in Iran who are protesting against this regime, and we have to increase our pressure on the regime of the mullah. That means increasing sanctions, new sanctions, putting up political pressure, and of course, as just mentioned in the report, the European Parliament has called now for many years that the Revolutionary Guards should be listed as a terrorist organisation.
Well, indeed, that's something that's been on your priority list for years. But why is this not happening? It should finally happen. What are the political and legal barriers here?
Well, as we just heard, it requires a court case, that has now happened in Germany, and then we need consensus among the 27 member states. And obviously there are a few member states which still have a different opinion. I don't agree with this. The European Parliament has clearly demanded to call a spade, and the last important country which also listed the Revolutionary Guards as a terrorist organisation was Australia in November last year. So what Australia has done, what the United States has done, I think it's now time for the European Union to do the same.
But indeed, as you say, it is political. What about Donald Trump's intentions in Iran? Are they making you nervous, even though now he has dialed down the tone?
Well, what we just heard and saw this morning is that there will be no public executions. This first step by the mullah regime might also be a result of increased American pressure. But the situation in Iran remains tense. And let's be very clear, the regime of the mullah has oppressed their own people now for decades and is a real source of destabilization in the entire region.
And that's the issue. Can we trust Donald Trump when he says this?
Well, I think you always have to take very seriously what Mr. President Trump says, but also Mr. Trump's policies are in the end unpredictable. And I think it's clear that the Americans in the moment will not 100% be clear what they are actually going to do with or in Iran.
And what about Greenland? As you heard, their talks broke down yesterday in Washington, D.C. What is the Parliament and the EU doing to have a say?
Greenland is a sovereign part of the Kingdom of Denmark. Greenland is sovereign, and that means that every country should respect the territorial sovereignty and integrity of Greenland. The European Parliament has been very clear. The group leaders in the Conference of Presidents yesterday adopted a very clear statement where we stand side by side with the Kingdom of Denmark, with Greenland, and the future of Greenland will be decided by the people of Greenland in close coordination with the Kingdom of Denmark.
But is there any leverage you as the Parliament can actually use? A lot of MEPs have called for freezing the EU-US trade deal, for example, as a way to put leverage on Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, we've been very clear in our commitment towards Greenland. The European Union will step up its engagement in Greenland.
But what about freezing those talks?
The financial support for Greenland will be doubled in the next annual multi-financial framework. If the decision on the US trade deal will be stalled or not, that has to be decided in the European Parliament. I understand that there are different views within the political groups.
What's your view?
I personally believe that the EPP line is that we should separate the two issues. We need to finalise the US trade talks because our companies need predictability, they need stability. On the other hand, I understand that we need to find majorities, and in the moment, I think the EPP and the European Conservatives are for moving forward, whereas the Socialists, the Liberals and Greens perhaps want to postpone the vote. We will see.
And finally, a brief point on the Ukraine-Russia war, which of course is still ongoing, even though President Trump's mind is elsewhere. Is it time now, do you think, to talk to Vladimir Putin?
We all want peace, but this peace needs to be just and it needs to be sustainable. And this is the most important point, includes security guarantees for Ukraine. Mr. Putin could stop this war if he stopped bombing innocent civilians immediately. He has shown no interest in this until now, and that's why our position as the European Union is we stand with our Ukrainian partners. And
last year, of course, was the deadliest year yet for Ukrainian civilians. Thank you so much, David McAllister, for being our guest today on Europe Today, and thank you so much for tuning in. For more news and analysis, do check Euronews or download our app. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow morning. Bye from Brussels.